Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming back on time to this discussion. Today we want to talk to you about two things. One is password reset portals. It won't make you a forger rock star, but it will make you a legend. The other is potentially auctioning off that Jamie Vaughn signature guitar from Mike Ellis there. I am a managing director at Deloitte. I've been in the identity industry for the past 20 years. I've served a number of different clients of different size, scope, and coverage globally. Just like Jimmy Vaughn is inseparable from his guitar, I've been attached to both enterprise and digital identity for quite some time now, serving clients like Chad. And I want to talk about a couple things today, but before I do that, before we jump in, I want to give Chad the floor to introduce himself. Chad?
So hi, everybody. My name's Chad Cromwell. I'm currently Director of Identity at Macy's. My title is a little strange. I don't know why my CISO came up with that title. But my goal at Macy's is to not sit and fall on stage. I'll just stand here like this. My goal at Macy's is to handle privileged identity, enterprise identity, and what the future of consumer identity is at Macy's. I was, a long time ago, founder and CTO of Identity Forge, but I had to give that company up because ForgeRock wouldn't remove Forge from their name, and they said the rock was already taken, so I had to give that up. But anyway, Alex is going to start here, and then we'll take you through our journey at Macy's.
No, I appreciate that. We should trademark that ForgeRock Rockstar name, or maybe put it up on Twitter. Hashtag Identity Live.
Right.
So I guess before I even jump in, and a lot of the summit we talk a lot about digital identity and consumer and identity of things. And I think often we kind of lose sight of who the real consumers are in our enterprises or in our organizations, which are really our employees. And when Chad talks about Macy's philosophy on how they are driving a better but more secure user experience, not only for their corporate retail store employees, and how they kind of started down the IAM and digital transformation journey, I think you'll hear a lot of interesting things from Chad today. But before that, just kind of personal anecdote to get it started. So I'm based in San Diego, born and raised as a military brat. I get to spend time with a lot of both private, public sector, including military leaders, talking about cyber in San Diego, so we support a number of different clients there. And one of my buddies, good friend of mine, who actually used to work for the NSA as well, was a former pilot for the Navy. And he flew C-130s. So if any of you know about a little bit about aviation, C-130s are lumbering airplanes. They have 4 turboprop engines, and these were used primarily for airborne assault, right, search and rescue missions by the military. And so he would tell this story about a C-130 taking off coast to coast, regardless of the direction, but over the ocean. As you know, these airplanes are, again, they're large, and so a lot of the energy spent or expended from takeoff to getting to altitude, right? And so after about 10, 15 minutes, you're up at altitude and you're cruising at that point. The C-130 takes off, and after about an hour, passengers, they pass what they call the, I guess the point of no return, right? Where it just makes sense to keep going forward and not turn back for whatever reason. So after about an hour, passengers look outside the plane, they notice one of the engines goes out. And so passengers get a little concerned, and the pilot and crew obviously notice this, and they say, it's fine, we've got protocol in place, a little lower, a little slower. We've got 3 engines left. We'll make it there just as fine. And so another hour goes by, and you can see this trend is pretty ominous, right? A 3rd engine goes out. Of course, pilot recognizes it. Passengers look outside the window and see the prop just standing tall in the wind, get a little concerned, but the pilot, of course, with his protocol says, little lower, little slower, adjusts the plane as kind of needed. It's, you guys kind of know what happens next, right? As bad luck would have it, a 3rd engine goes out. And of course, the pilot with his protocol, again, internally he's thinking, I know I probably have to land earlier. I know potential airports and destinations that I need to land. So I have a contingency plan in place. But of course, I need to communicate to my passengers who are getting materially worried about what happens next, that a 3rd engine's going down. So pilot comes on and says, 3rd engine just went out, a little lower, a little slower. We're going to have to land a little early, but we'll still make it there. And so as the passengers are getting materially concerned, one passenger looks to another and says, gee, I hope the other engine doesn't go out because we'll be up here all day. So I tell this story, and I love this story because In the military, there's a lot of different analogies that we can apply to digital identity and digital transformation and even cyber risk. And where that particularly comes into play is this gap between experience and expectations, right? And so our consumers or our customers, the external facing B2B2C or B2C consumers, have a number of different expectations. Number one, they want a more personalized, white glove, tailored experience, and you've certainly heard some of those stories today from some of our other presentations. It revolves around the internet of me, right? My playlist, my books, my preferences, my whatever it may be, across different channels, right? From a frictionless experience. The second thing they obviously want is a more seamless experience across those different channels. So just like how we shop on our favorite sites to shop for and add it to our cart and only have to re-authenticate when we need to re-authenticate, making authentication invisible to that consumer, enterprises are also realizing that it's not about a personalized, for example, enterprise portal when you come in as an employee, but it's also an experience where you want to request access and approve access. It's a catalog, it's a dashboard, it's whatever it may be, a shopping cart, but the look and feel is very consistent and seamless across the different channels for you as an employee or enterprise. The third is, across brands and partners. So a lot of organizations who are external facing have different brands, obviously, and if you can look at some of the organizations out there, whether you're a Vanguard.com that has different sites or experiences for their personal investors, institutional investors, financial advisors, to the Gap, who has Old Navy, Gap, Athleta, and Banana Republic. The user experience, the user management experience is ultimately the same and pretty consistent and seamless across those brands. For enterprises, it's the same exact way, right? I think enterprises are asking for that same consistency across INM business processes and technologies and different platforms that basically serve an organization across IT, lines of business, and InfoSec. We're also seeing enterprises next to consumers or employees next to consumers want to be able to connect with each other. So within Deloitte, we actually have our own enterprise app store. And we develop apps, and those apps allow our colleagues of 200,000, 300,000 plus to connect with each other globally or even locally in the office. So I can get on my app, it's called Deloitte Magnet. It allows me to see who's in the office, and I can connect with them and find out what projects they're on, what clients they're serving, to share that wealth of information. And consumers obviously want to do the same thing on social media platforms. We also see consumers wanting most of these capabilities web-enabled, and it's the same thing for the enterprise, right? If you can make it easier for consumers to do business with you, why can't you make it easier for employees to work for your enterprise or work for your organization or do things safely, easily, and securely? And the last would be, a number of us have individual devices that we like to connect. Me as a smart home user, I've got my Nest camera, I've got my Amazon Alexa, a number of different things that are connected to an identity and an online account. For the enterprise, as you start to think about whatever devices and things are, like a smart workplace, you've got to think about how identity might serve as a core component to those implementations or those capabilities. And so when you look at identity, it ultimately is the key or the core component, at least in my personal view, to digital workplace happiness. There are a number of different things that you can do to balance user experience or convenience and security. I think a lot of organizations often think that the opposite of security is insecurity, but it's not. It's actually convenience. It's user experience. And so the goal ultimately is when you look at your enterprise INM program, you want to figure out how you're actually going to balance or manage cyber risk, but also balance the user experience, right? Because at the end of the day, your employees are also your consumers. And so this is, in some cases, very comprehensive, but it's also very overwhelming. And most of us obviously or clearly don't want to boil the ocean. So to be a little bit more prescriptive, and specifically with Macy's and their implementation, where they started was, or where do you start, but where they started was password reset portals. So all you need really is just to build that business case, that value proposition for starting down this journey, down this digital identity transformation journey, to get the user experience, get the employees more engaged, and actually expose this sort of interface to users so that it provides a stepping stone to more capabilities that you want to implement over time, manage over time, and measure over time. And so there's stats everywhere, right? But clearly Gartner, Forrester has a number of interesting stats. These are averages, and I think Chad can maybe talk to how his organization may be higher than the average in terms of password reset costs and time spent actually resetting passwords. But the point of this is, again, it does provide you with, instead of chasing that RBAC project or chasing that federated SSO project, you may want to start with, as you're thinking about digital identity for the enterprise or consumer, the enterprise or your employees, start with something that allows you to win small, win early, and win often. So to make it a little bit more real, I'll hand it off to Chad to talk about Macy's philosophy, but just give you a background on their organization.
Hi, guys. So, was it left one?
Yeah.
So, as Alex was saying, our password reset project wasn't even on the books for this year. So, we, as an organization, obviously are challenged, as you've heard Mike Ellis and others say, is from a retail perspective. Obviously, we want our store experience to be great for our consumers, but also all of us are consumers of Macy's. We're employees, but we're consumers. So when we went down this journey, it just wasn't a project. We just decided, hey, we're bringing help desk back in-house, so how do we help? So I'll give you a little background of kind of where we started and where we're going. So a year ago, we actually started with Privileged. We brought in CyberArk and started protecting our internal employees first with accessing servers. We rolled out our PCI applications to make sure they were secure with those database IDs and passwords. And then mid-year, we got a bill from IBM, who was running our help desk, for a lot of money for password resets. So we were spending an average of 5 to 6 minutes per password reset that we were outsourcing to IBM. So we had an initiative to bring the help desk back in and to fix that password reset problem. So that's kind of how we went down this journey with ForgeRock. What came out of it, though, is we had always been thinking, myself and our team, of every time we talk about our consumers, we talk about the 360-degree view, right? So we thought, why don't we think the same for our employees? Why don't we build services that they can use that are easy, that we can learn as a corporation to then move to the consumer? So that's kind of where we started and where we're going. The risk-based decision. So we're trying to innovate a little bit on maybe auto-provisioning or giving people access based on risk or similarity scores, who you work with, what team you got, you joined when you came to Macy's. So we're trying to use some of that data to auto-provision people or deprovision people. So that's some of that's come out of this one little password reset project. And obviously the last one, reduce friction. So everybody in the consumer world says, oh, you got to reduce friction. No consumer wants the two-factor or. So we're trying to think of ways with our employees to offer the same step up. Are we going to step up when you change your profile email address? Are we going to step up when you go into your direct deposit and change the direct deposit number? Those kind of things we're going to learn to kind of push us towards the consumer side of identity. This slide here, this is more just of all the touch points that we're going to do with our employees and then eventually consumers. One of the interesting things that we're doing that we will be piloting this year is self-registration. Well, what do you need with self-registration? So we need your phone and your email to send a code to your password reset. So that's how we do our password reset app, and I'll show you that a little bit later. But how do we get that data without you giving it to us or making you filling out a bunch of forms when you get hired? So we're trying to work with proofing companies to see if there's a way that we can prove who you are from your cell phone, get that data as you get onboarded, and then we have the data. Really, the whole project is about data, right? Everybody said about data. It's the same thing for us. We want that data because, one, we know who you are, so it's more secure, but two, then we can provide services for you to make your work-life balance a little easier. And then we learn from that to prove to our consumers. And so, like I was saying, we want to have a one-stop shop for identity. When I first came to Macy's, I've been here, I think I'm getting close to my 2 years at Macy's. I found out when I first started digging into some of our identity, current identity stuff, we have 40 to 50 PeopleSoft views that applications ask for all the time. That's just terrible, right? So we wanted to make something reusable. We want one place everybody to go. And when I show you what we did for our password app, one of the things that came out of that was an API abstraction layer, right? What we've done is we've gotten a customer already internally is our credit proofing customer that uses that API to get data to say, yep, I know who you are. So they didn't have to go to the PeopleSoft team and say, please create me another view. Data proliferation across the enterprise is pretty bad. So we're trying to fix that. Okay, password reset portal. I've been in this industry a long time, and I can't believe I'm on stage in Austin talking about password reset. Seems like it's been solved thousands of times. What we did, though, is and this came from our CISO too, mobile first, right? So you want to be mobile, you want it to be easy to use, and if you build it, people will come. So that's what happened with us. So we built something very user-friendly, thinking of the future. So we didn't think, oh, we're just building a password app and we're done. So this is kind of the architecture that we did. So we have ForgeRock, obviously, as our platform, IDM, which is another kind of switch. I know most of you guys out there probably use AM. We decided to go IDM route first because we just had that need we didn't have a DJ or a directory that we had data in other than AD. So eventually we will go AM and DJ and have certain attributes provisioned from IDM to DJ. But this is how we started. So we're reconciling about 500,000 users a day. That includes 200,000 employees, roughly at our peak time. We manage terminated users, retirees, Macy's partners, and vendors. So logistical partners that do shipping, and vendors like Sunglass Hut or stuff that's in Macy's stores. And like I said, the great thing about the API that we built was we already have customers that reuse it. So not only are we using it from our password reset app, we're using it from other people in the organization already starting to use it. So our goal going forward is to make sure everybody uses the API going forward. All right, I'm not going to do a live demo. I'll just let you guys come see me afterwards, and I'll show you on my phone. It's pretty straightforward. But I am going to show you kind of some screenshots of how we did this. So obviously, we were thinking about frictionless just because we're a consumer company. We sell shirts. I look good in my Macy's suit, shirt, socks, and shoes. I don't look as good as Terry Lundgren, but I'm getting there. A little more gray hair. So we obviously have a BYOD or a URL. It's in the middle there, a password tool. And it just looks like any banking application, right? It's just you put your 8-digit ID, your last 4 of your social, Google CAPTCHA, which we are on the latest Google CAPTCHA. One of my team members told me to mention. And I will make a note about this, maybe more my style of how the team is going. So you can see we offer not only forget my password, edit my profile, which edit my profile is your phone number and your email address that we track for sending the code to your phone or push notification, or change password, but you notice there's a grayed out unlock my account. So when we first started this process, this project, a learning experience for me that I didn't think that was of value. I didn't want to provide an unlock because I see the future with no password, so why would you want to unlock if you can't remember it 5 times? Shouldn't you just reset it? Well, the reason it's there is because the data proved me wrong. So as we roll this out and we actually did implement it, we saw a lot of people use it unlock. Probably most of our executives that don't want to change their password, but just to say I was wrong on that. And then obviously you see this every day, right? So I think the reason why we've been successful with this is it's just a right time in the market. Everybody sees this kind of app now. Your bank, you do this every day. You don't have to remember who kissed me first when I was in 2nd grade, or you don't have to remember those anymore, right? It's all just I get a code to my phone, I know how to do it, right? I probably did not get kissed in 2nd grade, but I will say, I'm going to stop here. There is a challenge. So we did have challenges. The challenge is people giving us their phone number. Everybody gave us their personal email. But phone number, our own IT, only 32% of our IT gave their phone number the first round. Why do you think that is? No one wanted to be on call. They didn't want their personal phone because they thought we were going to call them on call. So that's a whole shift in the user experience that your people should not have to worry about. So we had to go through a whole marketing campaign saying, no, this ID, this email and phone is just used. It's not going to show up in Skype or your Outlook profile. It's just in ForgeRock. But that is a challenge. One of the things, 2 weeks ago, we decided to purchase AM because we are going to go down the road of step up. We feel when people have to log in every day, they'll get used to it. They'll give us their phone number, and then this will kind of get back on track. And that's it. You can put the validation code in, and here I'm just showing an email validation, but it works just, you get a text on your phone, same thing.
Before you get off this slide, I'm just curious, how many of you actually have a password reset portal that is user-friendly, clearly, cross digital channels, but looks like this, and has actually gotten accolades or praises from your end users just by way of hand? A handful, okay.
Cool. All right, so last slide. I'll give you some statistics. So we, after rolling this out, like I was saying, we probably 5 to 6 minutes per password reset. We're now down to 2 minutes. And what that does, that saves 11,000 man hours a month. So then, of course, my GVP goes, what are those help desk people doing now? Because 70% of their job was doing password resets. So that saves us time and energy. People can do stuff that really help you in your organization, really get help when they need help. I think I already mentioned about the 500,000 user records. The last thing there about, we did receive accolades, but my manager, Dave, who's in the audience, wanted me to note that we didn't hear anything. So you can see the stats of how many people use it, and there was nothing. No, nothing bad, nothing good. People were just using it. So for us, that's a success. Right? If people can just go on and use it, that's awesome. The other thing I think that came out of it is we tried to make it so user-friendly, we did not do training. So we didn't have user guides and go out to the corporation and say, hey, we just said we have a new app, try to use it, and we tried to make it very user-friendly. That's it.
So before we open it up to the audience, I actually have a couple of questions I wanted to ask you. And
yep.
And I hope this was meaningful and thoughtful for some of you who are looking to figure out, or at least just starting your journey, where do we start, right? Because this clearly can make you a legend as you start to build on that foundation for user experience and cyber risk. But my first question to you is, and I think there may be a question in the audience about this as well, because we heard one earlier about going passwordless, right? Or killing the password, or whatever that new campaign kind of is. And with the adoption of biometrics, at least in financial services and some other industries, what is your personal view or point of view, or Macy's point of view on biometrics and next-gen authentication?
So my personal view, and I think Macy's as general, we're going there. So we already have an edict to say get rid of them. We're gonna try it. I don't see the point of a password. If it's so easy to get, I don't see why you can't just push notification, send a code to your phone every day. I don't remember phone numbers anymore. Like when I was a kid, right? I had to remember my home phone. I don't remember that anymore, right? Same thing should be with passwords. There's no reason to say, oh, I got to change it every 60 days or every 90 days. Why not just get a new one every day or just push notification? So we as a company are going there. I don't know where we'll start. We have not started it. This is the first step we're going towards that, getting the data of the user. So now that we have their phone number and their email, it's easier to go down that path. But there's a lot of POS, desktops. How do we get all that working? But we are going there. So that is something Macy's is going to try to do. And then hopefully learn from that to push the consumer.
So nice. I guess that was my second question. So a lot of focus, obviously, on the enterprise and your employees. Mm-hmm. What about the consumers? And I shop at Macy's. Actually, my other half shops at Macy's more than I do because she spends quite a bit of money there with her Macy's credit card and gets all the coupons on her phone. But push to consumers. I mean, what's the focus there? I mean, is there a possibility that one day you could walk in? Let me go back. You can track customers or consumers when they walk out of a store, a retail store, because they've already made a transaction, right? You can see their payment. Is there an opportunity for you guys to potentially track users as they come in?
So I'll give you two kind of scenarios how we're looking at I want to say kind of not IoT-ish, but a little bit and consumer. So from the enterprise perspective, we're looking, so we use beacon technology and RFID chips all across our stores. From an internal perspective, we're trying to figure out an easy way to protect fraud at our POS. How do you protect fraud at our POS when, maybe the register clerk is sharing her password to have someone else do a sale? So we're trying to come up with ways to use IoT to know that user is coming close to the register that she's allowed to use, next to the phone that we can call her if we need to call her, and then she's allowed to log into that POS that she's allowed to log into. So that is one use case we're trying to do from the employee perspective. From the consumer perspective, I think we're going to start with two-factor. I think we're going to start with step-up authentication on certain types of transactions. Our .com division is very sensitive to friction, like every other .com. And I think we want to just say, hey, you're about to buy a $5,000 item. Maybe we don't know you're coming from your phone that you normally shop from. We'll step up authentication. And then the long-term goal is using those RFIDs to share data with our store clerks. So we will have, when the user comes in, maybe it's one of our 10% best customers, that associate should know that data so that they can go and say, look, man, you just bought a black dress yesterday. Here's some shoes that go with that dress. So there's opportunities to upsell when they come in. And obviously we want to, those top 10% or 20% customers, we want to make them feel like, hey, keep being our top 10% customer.
Got it. Makes sense. So, obviously, digital identity being user-centric, number one, data-centric, number two, context-aware, risk-based, number three. So that's good. Yeah. So I guess on that note, then, the last question I have is, because you mentioned employees didn't want to give up their number initially when they were enrolling or registering for the password reset portal. And I was thinking more it's just to track employees to make sure they were actually working physically there.
That's coming.
Versus golfing, yeah. So how are you, I guess, tackling the awareness and the communications? Because, I think a lot of organizations feel that the biggest barrier, or at least the most visible barrier, is culture, yep. Right? And having to change and adapt to that change. So how did you guys address that?
So it is difficult. We went through every communication channel to make sure that everybody knew this was coming. We ran a program on our portal, say you can win an iPad if you give us your number, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. It still didn't work. So it really, I think, yes, we got all the emails, and we have some phones, but I think once we get to authentication, not just reset password, when you two-factor every day, you're going to get sick of going to your email, and you're just going to want to push notification or put your phone in. So I think making it very simple to use, like we did with our mobile app, be mobile first. I think if you get to those points, people just automatically start using it. They don't think about it. Oh, this is my number, I can't give it away. I think those days are gone. I think that challenge will go away.
Okay, great, thank you. So we've got some time here. We'll open it up to the floor if anybody's got any questions. I see a hand in the back there. I think a mic's coming.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
So the gentleman from Cox Communications was kind enough to share his timeline from point of budget to going live. Yep. Can you give just some highlights for your timeline? Sure.
So one, we didn't have budget. So being retail, that's a very important thing to note. But luckily, I have a great CISO that finds that money when it's important. I want to believe we purchased end of May last year and went live in production in November. So close to 6 months. But that's also reconciling from EBS, PeopleSoft, manual, a connector to ServiceNow, Active Directory, and we had more than one Active Directory, so we have overseas and terminated Active Directory, so all those came into play and we went live with that. And another thing that came out of this too is we're about to launch mainframe password reset next week, which doesn't seem like a big deal, but what it's going to do for us is, used to, when you come to Macy's, everybody got a mainframe ID because we're still in the kind of legacy world where everybody got their network ID and a matching RACF ID. So doing this password reset to the mainframe now, we can eliminate giving everybody a RACF ID in our provisioning system. So now we'll go from every 200,000 people having mainframe ID to just 30,000. So that is a great win too. Thank you.
Time to value, good question.
Yep.
I really like the innovative approach that you took, where you were set out to learn from the experience with your employees. You tried to make it intuitive. Can you tell us what you've got planned that's similarly innovative as you start to think about having a customer access management solution?
Yeah, so we just went down the road of getting AM. Like I said, we purchased it a couple weeks ago. We are trying, like I said, to go live probably by August with step-up authentication to our external portal. We're going to do that so every day our store people have to get their timesheets off that external portal. And those same people are obviously customers. So we're going to learn from them what they think of two-factor, first of all, and then how do we make sure we get the right data from that experience? Are we tracking the right things, the location? Can we find out what devices are coming from, the POS, their mobile, the selling devices on the store, see how they're two-factoring in externally to that portal. So then the next step will be, we probably are going to do some stuff in the store as well. So I'll give you a little example. So from consumer, what's a problem? So you go into the store and you check out and someone says you want to email your receipt. Why in the world do we make you type in your email, right? We have it. You're a .com customer. You have your credit card, right? So why do we have to? So we have systems all over the place. So we are going to try to come up with a way. We have Hyper-V stacks in all of our stores to maybe put lightweight directories in all of our stores with a central one in the cloud that's syncing to it every hour or something, but only have people that work at that store in that DJ. So that's kind of the stuff we're looking for.
Yeah, I'll just comment a little bit more broadly. So there are organizations that they clearly have a decision tree and a vision, which is very in line with what leading organizations are doing. Other organizations clearly see the user experience and testing that with a small group or pilot as I mentioned earlier, as the stepping stone to start enabling or turning on other capabilities. And so what they want to do specifically is they want to integrate, for example, with a true fraud risk engine, like a ThreatMetrix, Silvertail, T-Leaf, where you can return and aggregate a risk score to the authentication or re-authentication process at that point in time when a certain transaction is happening, right? So they can report on normal and alert on weird. The other thing you want to do on the digital side, and this kind of helps when you're looking for budget, is integrating with your order management or campaign management or customer MDM solutions or call and contact centers. So there's a number of other places or a number of other capabilities and integrations that organizations want to do specifically on the consumer side to make that experience better, but also serve the business, which is supporting that digital transformation.
And if we do roll it out, we will roll ourselves out that are Macy's customers too first, so we can feel the pain if there is any first. But that does require code changes on .com, and that's never a fun process to go talk to those guys about. So we'll see.
Good question. Any other questions? Yeah, we got one here. Oh.
You have on your page.
Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. You have on your page CAPTCHA.
Yep.
How are you identifying bots? Like the identity of the bot so that you don't have to use CAPTCHA and move away from all that noise?
I don't know. I'll ask my technical team to talk to you afterward. It's been a pretty simple process for us, though. And I think we're using the new invisible CAPTCHA anyway, so we'll see. I'll get with you afterwards.
So I'll take a stab at that just because, again, outside of retail, I primarily serve our large banking, securities, and investment management clients, and this is clearly, concern, right? CAPTCHA, number one, is specifically designed to address bots, hitting URLs, and going through different processes. So I don't think organizations will continue to use CAPTCHA where it makes sense. But if it starts to impact user experience, what is trending more is making authentication and re-authentication, and I'll call it secure validation, invisible to the end user so that the user experience becomes frictionless. So what I mean by that, when you register and enroll, it should be very, very simple, right? To create an online ID, to set up your profile, to do the proofing, right? Whether you're using LexisNexis, Experian, et cetera, for the proofing, or using a mobile network operator, or doing KYC document verification, for example, taking a picture of your passport, linking it to an identity, that should be frictionless and seamless. Authentication, when you log in for the first time, say you're shopping and you want to add stuff to your cart, but you don't want to have to re-authenticate again, you know, that authentication, re-authentication process, proving that you're still there, should ultimately be as, I guess, painless or frictionless as possible, so it doesn't ruin your whole kind of shopping behavior in the first place, right? And I think what you're going to see is, you know, more organizations implementing what I would call is a pick and choose framework. So they want to be able to pick and choose when they use CAPTCHA, when they use context aware or adaptive authentication, when they use certain risk indicators to identify you are who you say you are, but one day you're logging in from Chicago, the next day you're logging in from, you know, whatever it is, Europe. Or, you know, you're doing something very sensitive where they require you to have an out-of-band, you know, sort of authentication in a different channel. So I think you're going to see more of that, but I don't think CAPTCHA is going to be the end-all, be-all for that sort of thing, right? That's a good question, though. We had one more question in the back.
So in the password reset flow that you showed, how much of it is out of the box, and was there any customization of the IDM?
I didn't hear the first part.
How much of it was out of the box, and what customization was done to get that
So
information?
the whole password app is our app. So we think of ForgeRock as the engine that can, and we use it as an engine. That's why we put the API in front of it. We built our own app. That might change over time, but we felt that it was better for us to own the app and own that experience. So the whole app is ours, and then past the API, it's all ForgeRock.
And I would say the beauty in that is because I have another project where they're just building the same exact thing, custom bespoke code, which worries me because there are no guardrails. The guardrails, I guess, quote unquote, that ForgeRock would set up if you were using their product or platform. Any other questions? All right, great. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, sir.